What's up everyone, I'm very excited to bring you the Attack Dogs from Wild West Exodus. This is the new game that I was talking about in one of my other videos where I said that I had picked up a new game and I was going to start painting it. And the Attack Dogs are different from all the other things I've done because I don't have anything to work off of, no concept art. I had to pick a color scheme of what I want my army to be. This is a skirmish style game. And so I'm going to make all of my sheriffs and my lawmen look like these attack dogs. So I figured they were the best to start with because I could make them pretty simple. And I think they turned out really, really cool, as simple as they are. So let's get down to the table and I'll show you how I did them. Alright, to get started, we did Zenithal highlights. I started out with a black primer and then did a white primer from the top down and a 45-degree angle. And there's two different sculpts. You actually have to build these guys yourself, so they are like Warhammer 40k or any of the other really, like, it's pretty popular throughout wargaming where you build your own models. They don't come pre-built. I'm using the Warpainter Brushes that I always use. And I'm starting with Vallejo Model Color, Vallejo Model Color's Prussian Blue. I'm going to be painting, I'm picking out specific areas. Now, what I'm doing with these dogs, these attack dogs, they are going to be on the lawman side. So I wanted them to sort of have like traditional sheriff or lawman colors. But I also wanted them to be sort of dinged up a little bit as if they had been in battle and they have been, you know, hunting down the outlaws. So they've been banged up a little bit. But yeah, there are two different models, and then you get some different options of like what you want the face to look like. One of the dogs is kind of built like a Rottweiler or a big Mastiff. And then this dog here that I'm working on right now is more like a German Shepherd or maybe a Doberman. You know, kind of pointy, kind of, you know, regal in the way that it stands. I'm doing a two-color scheme for the most part, so the Prussian Blue is going to be a significant portion of the model. So I'm painting the legs and underneath the belly, in between the rib plates. And here is the other model as well, and where I picked out blue for this one. And here is the finalized blue on the first model here. Now I'm using Vallejo's Mecha Color Steel and my Warpainter dry brush, and I'm going to dry brush some of the steel. You could use any sort of gray or flat metal. Now steel is metallic, but it's not as like bright as silver, so it doesn't kind of like shine. It just more has some reflective properties to it. And I'm going over all of the blue areas and dry brushing with this steel to make it look like the blue paint has rubbed off. So if I were to paint it with steel first, then try to put blue on it, then try to take blue off to make it look like it's chipped, it actually wouldn't work the way that you would assume that it works. Like, that's how it would be in real life. But when you're painting it, you kind of have to do it the opposite to make it come out the same. So here I've done the steel on both models, and you can see the blue now has chipped away in areas. And then I'm going back, and in some areas I am painting the steel itself with an actual brush. So this is not dry brushing it on there, I'm just going back and putting that steel on. And this is basically on the hydraulics of the legs. There's a couple places where you can see the hydraulic pieces to the legs, and I wanted those to kind of stand out as being their own thing. And I'm using some Citadel's Nuln Oil, and I'm mixing that with Vallejo's Glaze Medium. And Glaze Medium helps to thin down your washes with in a different way than water would. If you take Nuln Oil or any of the washes from Citadel and add water to them, what ends up happening is you're diluting the pigment unevenly. So anywhere that water was to touch, you would get no pigment whatsoever, and then it would still cake up in any areas where the pigment was allowed to pool. When you add glaze medium, it sort of thins it down evenly, because what's in the glaze medium is the same clear liquid that's used with ink to make the wash. So in other words, you're just getting a thinner wash. And I'm painting this on all of the blue areas. I don't want it to pool so much as I want it to make it look like oil and gunk and dirt has built up over time in the machinery. So it does serve a dual purpose. It is also darkening down some of the blue and metal colors, but it is also giving its own look and looking like paint. So I actually did a couple layers of this. I didn't just do it once. I went back and in smaller and smaller portions I put a little extra on there. And the reason I put the glaze medium in, and you don't need a ton, it's not a 50-50 mix, it's just a little bit of glaze medium. And the reason I did it that way was I wanted to build it up slowly. I didn't want it to look like a wash. I didn't want to discolor the whole entire thing and make it, you know, be kind of black in certain areas. I wanted it to look like oil stains and things like that. Here's Vallejo's Model Color Flat Red. And now I'm going to be painting the rest of the model, pretty much everything except for the nose piece. So everything on his head, his neck, his back, on its sides, all of this I'm painting red. And the reason is after this I'm going to be painting another metallic on top of it. And you definitely want some sort of base color. Now if you wanted if you wanted to do gold and you wanted it to look naturally gold, you would probably use a brown or a tan. I didn't want it to look naturally gold. I wanted it to look like they tried to paint this dog to look like a sheriff. And the way that I did that was to first paint it red, and I'm painting both dogs, so here you can see the other one. I painted all of the remaining gray parts except for the nose piece, or the snout, I guess you would call it, on a dog, red. And then I'm going to paint the metallic over that, and it's going to almost look like a candy apple red. It's going to look like, you're going to be able to see that red depending on which way you turn the dog. Now before we get into the actual metal part, I'm using Vallejo's Model Color White. And with white, I'm painting inside the vents because I'm going to make it look like this animal runs on like coal power or, you know, some sort of fire inside of it. So its eyes are, I don't know what to really call it. They sort of just look like some sort of filament is in the eye socket area for this specific model. The other one looks a little different. On the chest it has some vents, and then on the side of the chest it has vents. And so the first thing I did was to paint it white and then let that dry. And then I came back in with the red, and you can see how the red actually looks different because the red is going over white instead of over gray. Because of that, we're getting a different shade of red, and that's what we want, is we want a bright, vibrant red because we're looking at it as if it's like glowing embers. Then I'm coming back and using Vallejo's Game Color Orange Fire, and I'm doing about 2/3. So I'm starting a third of the, or like a bit of the way down, and then stopping a bit before I hit the very bottom. And I'm trying to get just in the middle of all of those areas. Making sure to get the eyes as well, doing the exact same thing. So it's going to be red at the very top, and then it's going to start to fade into orange, And then after that, we're going to be using yellow, which is, I'm using Vallejo's Model Color Lemon Yellow. Lemon Yellow is a very, very bright yellow. And I'm starting that about halfway down and doing a small area of that, doing the same thing on the eyes. And it's just giving it like a scale gradient, the same way that you would do fire. You would want the hottest point to be in the middle, and then as it fades out, it gets to the darker reds. I think that this looks really, really good when it's all finished and it's all painted up. And it's a good time to do this now before you come back with the gold, because you don't want to get it on top of any of your metallic colors. Then I came back with Vallejo Model Color's white, and at the very bottom I put in a little highlight of white, and right in the center of the chest areas I put a little dab of white as well, just to give it like a hot spot. So that is going to be the hottest portion, is right in the center of the chest there. So you can see here, I'm trying to get the light in there so that you can really see it. You can sort of see it there, is how the fire fades from the darkest red at the outer portions to the bright white highlight right in the center of it. So here's the Vallejo Model Color Gold, and now with the gold I'm going to go over all of the red portions except for the fire stuff that we just did. So we're going to obviously go around that piece, because the gold wouldn't make any sense to be in those cracks, but we are going to put it over all of the armor. And don't worry about this being too bright. We're going to go back, darken it down, and then we're also going to scuff it up, because I don't believe that these dogs are made of gold. That would be ridiculous. Why would they use gold on an animal that, well, a robot that's supposed to look like an animal that's going to fight and get all busted up anyway? They're not going to spend the money on the gold. So I believe that they're painting the gold, and that's why I thought that the red color would look really, really good on there, is if we're going with a storyline of they're building these animals to help support them, then the animals are painted, and it still needs to look metallic because they're making them out of metal, but we don't want it to be bright gold. So I'm doing the same thing with the Nuln Oil and some of the mixed in Glaze medium, and I'm going and getting all of there's little like divots in there, and there's little scratches and cuts, and I'm putting this a little heavier in the shadowed areas and then a little lighter in the non-shadows areas, but I'm kind of putting it everywhere at least a little bit to dull down some of the shine. Now I'm going to start on the base here, because the base is separate and it takes a little while for the base to dry. So I'm not done with the dog yet, but I moved over to the base while the Nuln Oil was drying to start the base and get it prepped so that I could let that dry. And what I'm using is some texture paste. It has some sand and glue mixed together basically. And you could put paint in this and dye it before you do, but I think I have a really simple way to make this look like desert dirt. Basically all I did was put a little glob on, then go and use my finger to smooth it out and give it some texture. And then any of the extra I just put back into the pot of the paste. Pretty simple. So now we go back to that Mecha color steel, and I'm now going to dry brush over the gold. Now on this one you can see I put a little bit too much on, so you want to do less than that. You want it to be scuffed up, but it's okay. Overall it doesn't actually stand out as much as you think it would. In person, I mean, like under the direct lights, yeah, it does shine pretty heavily, but in like normal kitchen lighting, you know, if you're playing this game on your kitchen table, it looks pretty normal. I think that it actually came out really, really good, and you'll see in the final pictures, you know, I used a more natural lighting for that, not the bright lighting that I paint under. It comes out really, really, really good, looking like it's painted steel and not that it's actual gold. Now back to the base, I'm using some Agrax Earthshade. Just taking my brush, dipping it straight in, and I'm going to paint this on the base. So you'll see this darkens down the base to a dark brown color. For the most part, the dogs are now done. We don't really have much to do on them, if anything. I think that might have been the last step. Well, I did paint some silver on their snouts. Oh, not silver. That Mecha color, steel. I used that for their snout, so that their snout is pure metal. And the snout is part of the model that you can actually interchange. So they have different types of snouts. You can make big like jaws, or you can do the spike, or you can do like a gun. It's all different. Here's the Vallejo Model Color Whole Red. Now this one I dry brush heavily on, so I do it basically in every direction. So I do it top down, and then I do it bottom up, and then I do it left to right, and I do it right to left to make sure that it's covered. Pretty much everything has some whole red on it. Then after that I use Vallejo's Game Color Khaki, and this one I'm going to do a little bit less. So you'll see that I brush this one on in just a couple of directions, and I don't press as hard. So we get a little bit less of the khaki on there than we did of the whole red. And then we come back with Yellow Ochre, and this is the brightest color, so we don't want much of this at all on there. Now this one, depending on how much you use, is really going to define what the base looks like. So with this one, I'm painting it in just two directions, and I'm trying to do it as light as possible, but I definitely want there to be highlights on there. But you can see when it's set down, that looks like dirt. So what I do is, to base the model, I first push his spike that I've glued into the bottom of his foot. I have a little drill, and I drill into the bottom of his foot, and I put a paper clip in there and then cut the paper clip down. Then I've pushed it into the base to let me know where his foot is going to be. And then I come with my drill, and I drill all the way through. So this is a drill meant for this specific purpose. I bought it to be able to use on models, and they run you about $10–15 US. And then I put him in and make sure that he lines up where I want him to be. From there, I'm going to get super glue, and I'll put super glue definitely on the spike. So I flip it over, and I think I show you the spike on the opposite side. So I like Gorilla Glue. It dries clear, and it dries really hard and really fast. There's also ones that come with little brushes, and I think that's great. But you can see the spike coming through on the other side. It's a little bit of paper clip, and that's where I put the glue, and I put it on all 4 feet. But you can see here the gold is way dulled down. It is not super shiny. It looks like it's painted on, especially with that red undercoat on there. And then with the brushed steel on top of it, it looks all like it's basically been dinged up and they've been in battle. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you check out this game. It's a really awesome game, and I will be back soon with more videos of Wild West Exodus. See you soon. Bye.